I do want to talk about rebuilding self-worth or rebuilding your self-worth in Christ. We've been in ministry for so long, and I remember I used to tell people if something goes wrong, that's your pride, or you are just too lazy, or you are this and that. And I just really found that when we give out labels so easily, it's not entirely helpful. Because while you can identify the sin, so-called the sin of the person, but then we fail to go deeper to understand why. I mean, if you look at the Lord, when he went to Adam and he didn't say that, why did you eat the fruit? What did he say? He said, where are you? Right? And yes. And with Elijah, there was a 6,000 or 7,000 prophets. They were just down the road, and he didn't go there. He went to the top of the mountain, staying all by himself. And then the Lord didn't say to him, well, why don't you join these fellows? They cook for you and you guys can have fellowship, right? But guess what the Lord said? He said, what are you doing here, Elijah? So these are actually counseling questions. So just to go back to the whole labeling thing is that sometimes, probably after so many years, I just realized that these things are not entirely helpful for us to grow and to go deeper and to improve. And then that actually led me to this thing where I just realized that if I ask a little bit more deeper and I actually realize that there are needs and there are things that they actually wanted but they didn't get and they were trying to get in the wrong way. But to go a little bit further is that I found that it has a lot to do with self-worth, with our self-worth as a person. So I just want to quote a couple of things from some secular people, and I'll quote some scriptures. Self-worth, I want to start with that. Self-worth is your core belief that you believe you have value and significance, even before you've done anything. It's not based on your success, failure, or what others think. There was a German philosopher from the 1700s, and his name was Immanuel Kant, K-A-N-T. He said he believed that self-worth is not earned, it's built in, meaning you could say, I'm worthy of you paying attention to me because of my self-worth. I'm worthy of having opportunities to succeed. I'm worthy of having time to rest. You don't have to earn that. I'm worthy of being treated with respect. So that's self-worth. Means like before you start anything, before you've done anything, you should have these things. And the thing is that a lot of us, we actually didn't have these things to grow up with. And even to the point that we think we don't deserve to sleep for 7 hours. I do want to bring up the word self-esteem, which I will not talk about, but I will mention it here. Self-esteem is different. It's actually how you feel about yourself based on performance or success. So it's like saying, I feel good about myself because I did well, or I don't feel good about myself when I didn't do well. William James, an American philosopher from the 1800s, it was like 300 years ago. And he said that self-esteem is like how well you do compared to what you expect of yourself. In other words, the higher your success compared to your expectations, the better you feel about yourself. But the thing is that self-esteem is not self-worth. So self-worth is not something you produce, it's something that God made and built in you. Otherwise, why would Paul said you were bought at a price? Paul would have said, I got you for free. He didn't say that. So that means there's a value there. And Peter actually said that from 1 Peter chapter 1. He says, you were redeemed by the blood of Christ. So it talks about you as a person, as a life, you have value and significance. Let's just come back to a little bit more recently, a Christian counselor and author. Her name is June Hunt. She has a book called Discover Your God-Given Worth. One quote I want to quote from her is that she actually said, low self-worth often comes from wounding, rejection, and comparing yourself to others. That can twist how you see yourself instead of seeing yourself the way God does. So I think tonight is a good topic to talk about our own self-worth. Otherwise, sometimes you would actually think that I'm not worthy of this and that, this and that. So there are a lot of missing pieces that we grew up with and we didn't have. And then now as adults, we just feel like, is it okay for me to even to rest? Is it okay for people to accept me as I am? You know why people think that? It's because they think they were not worthy of these essential needs being met. You remember that we share this, right? Because one of the reasons why I got you guys to share that was to introduce yourself. But also, I think we have a lot of wrong I ams in us, because we have a lot of wrong I ams because we don't know the right I ams. So that's why we got you guys to read these things. We also don't know the right I ams because you might not understand the great I am, because that's like the Lord, Oh, is it good? Oh, that's good. So God created us in his own image. Means like God created mankind mirroring himself. So imagine that, right? God named the sky, sky, the sun, sun, the sea, sea. And yet Adam did the same thing. He was able to name the animals. We can speak, plan, and create because God did that first. He said, let there be. Let there be light. And there was. So we experience and express different emotions. Love, joy, grief, justice, compassion. And we wonder, where did we get that from? It's from God, because God has all that. So we do bear his likeness, mirroring his intelligence, his nature, and his authority, and so forth. I actually did a little bit of the whole study about I am, because I just realized that I used to say I'm a failure, I'm up to no good, I don't know what I am. So I have to really re-educate myself, I guess, like to really renew my mind on who I really am, using basically what the Bible verses tell me. It comes a lot more natural to me now because it took a long time for me to convince my mind. As we learned that there's a groove in our mind, there's a default setting in our mind. Whenever you make a mistake and your default setting, if your default setting is a failure, and right there you will just go to that default setting, oh man, I failed again. It's almost like there's no a better setting in your mind telling you, well, I failed, but it doesn't mean I'm a failure. It actually means I can learn again. We must create this new groove in our mental, capacity, so we can fall back onto that instead of feeling so overwhelmed, so negative, and so kind of like feeling terrible for yourself. So, even at home, sometimes I would say, I'm anointed, I'm appointed, I'm adopted, I'm chosen. I'm accepted by God. The Lord likes me. He assures me. First, I would feel a bit cringy because I thought, ew, why would you say that God likes you? But then I have to learn to sit with that feeling and to embrace the truth. Because first of all, God doesn't hate me, right? He redeemed me by his blood, so he likes me. You know what? He doesn't just love me. He likes me. When he sees me, he smiles at me. He wants to spend time with me. He's waiting for me when I'm working. Not that, God is less than me. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when I'm busy, when I finish my work, I just can't wait. Okay, let's put on a worship song. Let's pray. Let's read the word. So it's not a religious chore for me when I worship, when I read the word. It's a relationship thing for me. Sometimes we feel like we are not worthy of having these things. And you have to realize that as a person, we need personal development. We need character development. We need to develop ourselves. And part of the development is that we need these things. We have needs. We have these, we call it legitimate needs. In order for us to grow up, we need these things to come to our lives, to happen to us, and to fill us up. So I'm going to list, I've got 9 of these, and I'm going to go super quick on that. I touched on a little bit about the thing called psychological wounds. I don't know whether you heard of a doctor's name called Gaber Mete. He actually, yeah? How many of you guys ever heard of, yeah? That's awesome, yeah, you got his book. He actually said that the origin of the word trauma comes from the Greek word for wound. And it doesn't have to be catastrophic. It's more like a psychological injury. That when you didn't have that in your life, it doesn't have to be shocking. It just means you were deprived of that. You didn't have that when you grew up. And therefore, now you just feel like something is missing, but I don't even know what's missing. So what's missing? There are some legitimate needs, not fleshly, selfish needs. There are some legitimate needs that we all need. And these things must be met in order for us to grow up. So I'm going to share a little bit of that. Number one, I've got 9 of them. I'm going to just go through them. Number one is welcome. In other words, unconditional acceptance. Meaning, as a child, let's just talk about as a child, because we all grew up, we were kids before, but also we do have an inner child in us. As a child needs to feel accepted and wanted. When a child is consistently teased and yelled at, or they might be told, we tease you, we yelled at you because we love you. You know what? That's confusing. You say one thing and you do something else, and guess what? The child will never get the positive aspect out of the whole situation. They will always interpret it as negative. So it's such a confusing thing for a kid to even experience. You raise your voice, you look aggressive, but then you say, I love you. So the thing about unconditional acceptance is that it just doesn't matter whether you do right or wrong, you are accepted. You're part of the family. It doesn't mean I don't get upset at you, and doesn't mean you don't need to be corrected. But it also doesn't mean you are rejected. Does that make sense? Number 2, rest. I call it being unburdened by the needs of others. I think Jerry had an amazing testimony about his breakthrough and his, the miracles that he experienced. I remember he used to say, I used to think that my parents' responsibility was my responsibility. And then we all thought like, oh my gosh, you were only a kid. Why do you have to be burdened by the business or the earning or the responsibility of your parents? So rest is not just about having a good sleep, even though having a good sleep is important. But psychologically, rest means like, I don't need to worry about what other people are doing. I don't need to take on their burdens. Remember, like Jesus, he was able to sleep in the boat. Even though everything was busy, everyone came to him. Everyone wanted something from him. But he was able to rest. Okay, being unburdened by the needs of other people. Number 3, freedom to express all emotions. So this is a common one when children are told, don't be sad, don't be angry, you don't need to feel it, just do it. And guess what? Kids usually would learn to suppress how they feel. And as adults, they actually learn to keep themselves busy because they don't want to feel. And it's actually some of these guys, some of the cases that I've come across is that they will actually find threatening to sit still. They will actually find really uncomfortable to sit down and do nothing. Because you know why? When we sit down and rest and do nothing, usually all these negative emotions will come up and you have to learn to deal with it. And if you don't learn to deal with it, and you feel like all over the place. And usually people will just get up and do something because that will actually shut down your emotions. And I remember first when Helen and I first got married, and guess when we would argue, it's so predictable. You know when? Weakness. That's right. Oh man, we've got a married man here. Saturday morning, when we have nothing to do, when we sit down. When we had nothing to do, when we have to sit down and face each other, when we have no plans, and guess what? These things will just come up. But in a way, it's actually good because, well, actually, it's not good if you don't know how to deal with it. But it's actually really healthy and good if you know how to deal with it with the right tools. Freedom to express all your emotions. Number 4, like kids playing. It means unstructured, imaginative exploration. Means just to play. Okay, play is a legitimate. You guys look at me like, that's serious, right? Okay, play is a legitimate need because it teaches that life is not just about winning or losing. It's not just about being right or wrong. It's about exploring, finding the way that suits you, finding things that you didn't know before. You didn't learn from other people. You learn things yourself. So that's actually a legitimate need. And when the need for play is unmet, people often grow up struggling with creative thinking, problem solving, thinking outside the box. which can limit both their career growth and also life opportunities, because you didn't learn to play, you didn't learn to explore and find out things for yourself. And usually you will find entrepreneurs, business people, they're creative. They're a little bit more creative in coming up with solutions. Number 5, affirmation means building confidence and self-worth. So this is something to do with your self-worth. Remember, words create life. In other words, the lack of words creates a lack of life. Okay? Imagine if a father never says, I love you, I'm proud of you, a child may grow up struggling with low self-worth, self-doubt, seeking validation in many unhealthy ways, in many different wrong ways, right? Today I was just counseling someone, and basically the whole central theme of the person's struggle is about self-doubt, because he never got that from his parents. Amen? So if no one else is there to affirm you, you can affirm yourself. If no one else is there to encourage you, you can encourage yourself. If you realize that there's still a little 5-year-old you living inside you, now you're an adult. You pick up that little child, you comfort that little child, right? Number 6, boundaries. It means clarity, safety, and personal responsibility. If a child does not know where their obedience starts, where it ends, or where their personal choices start and where it finishes, then how can they understand responsibility? How can they understand limits and respect for themselves and others? When parents make up rules as they go, every day you have a different set of rules. That means children will learn to follow people instead of following principles. This often leads to people-pleasing, or at the other extreme, defiance and rebellion. That's why I said, just to label people, oh, you're rebellious, it's not entirely helpful. Number 7, correction. Learning from mistakes. Remember that correction is not rejection. When done well, correction builds resilience, maturity, and the ability to navigate life responsibility. So correction is a beautiful thing, but perhaps we all experienced it in some wrong ways. But the thing is that you do have to assure yourself that, okay, I think I want to be open to be corrected. It's not that threatening. But however, you need boundaries. If the other person shouts at you and, their emotional volume is really high, then you have to go stop. So that's another thing that we need to talk about some other time. Number 8, direction, guidance, and support in life journey. Without direction, people often feel lost, insecure, aimless, or unmotivated. But guidance is always available. You can always find help, clarity, purpose, if you want to talk. So don't be afraid to talk, because what I found is that if you give them the environment of safety, if you give them enough time to talk about what they want to talk about, half of the time they could come up with their own directions. They could actually come up, they know their purpose, but they're not given that safety, that acceptance, not feeling judged, to be able to open up. Well, as they talk, will they talk wrong? Sure. Will they go funny? Yeah, sure. But let them talk. They will find their place. So I think that's pretty much it. Number 9, that's not part of your personal development, but it's more, for the parents. Parents need to work on themselves as well. And parents or caregivers, they must actively pursue their own healing, their own growth, and their own emotional health as well. By working on themselves, they create a stable and nurturing environment for their children. Now you might think, oh, well, what about my faith and my spiritual aspect? You know what? All these points can be applied spiritually. When God comes to you, he gives you unconditional acceptance. It's not like you had to perform. I just accept you as you are. So you can actually apply all these things on both parenting, people, and also God. So that's my talk. And any immediate feedback or questions before I send out some points?